Right now, you are looking at a screen. Hold your thumb up at arm's length and cover one word on it. That patch, that tiny circle of your thumbnail, is roughly all your eyes can see in sharp focus. The rest of this room, the window, the door, your own hands on the desk, is a soft blur your brain is quietly painting in from memory. And about 15 degrees out to the side of wherever you are looking, there is a hole, a patch of your visual field with no light detectors in it at all. Nothing. A predator could stand in it. You have never once seen that hole because your brain has spent your entire life covering for it, filling the gap with whatever it guesses should be there. Both of your eyes have one, right now. Here is the thing. None of that is damage. That is your eye working perfectly, exactly as built. And by 2050, according to work led by Brien Holden and published in the journal Ophthalmology, roughly 4.8 billion people, just under half of everyone alive, will be too short-sighted to see clearly across a room. About 1 billion of them severely. Nothing is spreading. Nothing is infecting anyone. Your eye is not badly made, and it is not sick. It was never finished, and it has been waiting on instructions from a world that stopped sending them. This will change how you look at everything, including this screen. Let's go. Start with the part that is genuinely the strangest, because it is the thing every camera on Earth gets right and your eye gets backwards. Take the phone in your pocket. Light comes in through the lens, lands on a sensor, and the wiring sits behind the sensor where it belongs. Obvious. Sensible. Nobody would build it the other way. Your retina is built the other way. Light enters your eye and hits a layer of blood vessels, then a layer of nerve cells, then a mat of wiring. Only after passing through all of that does it reach the photoreceptors, the cells that actually detect light. There are around 127 million of them in there, and every single one is facing backwards, away from the light. They point at the back wall of your eye. Now you have a problem. All that wiring, spread across the whole inside surface, has to get out. So it gathers itself into a bundle and punches straight through the retina, like a cable shoved through the middle of a cinema screen. Where it punches through, there are no detectors. That is your blind spot. It sits about 15 degrees toward your ear, and it covers something like 6 degrees by 8 degrees of your vision, big enough to swallow a human face across a dinner table. We have known about it for roughly 360 years. A French physicist named Edmund Marriott worked it out, and by the story that has come down to us, he did the only sensible thing with a discovery like that, which was to take it to court and use it to make the king appear headless. You are about to do the same trick to your own hand. You can find it in about 10 seconds. Close your left eye, hold your left thumb and your right thumb out in front of you, a hand's width apart. Stare hard at the left thumb and slowly move the right one further out to the side. And at some point, without any warning and without any darkness, the right thumb is gone. Not blurred, gone. And the space where it was does not look empty. It looks like more wall. Meanwhile, the octopus, which grew a camera eye completely independently of us, did the obvious thing. Photoreceptors facing the light, wiring tucked behind, no cable through the screen, no hole. An octopus has no blind spot anywhere in its visual field, and it never needed a brain that lies to it about one. Two lineages, separated by more than 500 million years, built the same eye twice, and the one without a spine got the wiring right. So that is the case for the prosecution. Backwards, obstructed, punctured, except it does not survive contact with the evidence because there are long funnel-shaped cells threaded through the whole thickness of the retina, called Mueller cells, and it turns out they behave like optical fibers, living ones. They have a higher refractive index than the tissue around them, so they catch light at the surface and pipe it down through all that clutter to the detectors underneath with very little scattering. Christian Francu and colleagues showed this and published it in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2007. The retina is not a windscreen covered in wires. It is a windscreen with fiber optics grown into it, and the photoreceptors have to sit at the back. They are among the hungriest tissue in your entire body for oxygen and for chemical recycling, and everything they need comes from the pigment layer and the blood supply behind them. Flip them around to face the light, and they would be beautifully positioned, and they would starve within days. So the wiring is not sloppy. It is trapped. This was settled about 500 million years ago in something small, swimming in the dark, and no vertebrate has been able to renegotiate it since. Every fish, every frog, every bird, every human, all running the same, locked-in compromise. Go and find your blind spot, right now, properly, with your thumbs. Then tell me in the comments what it actually felt like when part of your own hand quietly stopped existing. Almost nobody expects it to be that easy, which leaves the question wide open. If the hardware is not the failure, what is? The next suspect is one of the strangest chapters in the story of any mammal, and it happened in the dark. For well over 100 million years, while the dinosaurs owned the daylight, our ancestors were small and nocturnal and hiding. Gordon Walls named this the nocturnal bottleneck back in 1942. and a team led by Menno Gurkheim tested the idea against modern mammal biology in a paper in the Proceedings of the Royal Society in 2013. The picture holds up. Mammals spent an enormous stretch of their history as night animals. And at night, color is worthless. Color costs you light. Every filter you put in front of a detector throws photons away. And when photons are the scarce resource, the sensible move is to throw the filters away instead. So we did. The ancestor of all of us carried 4 different cone pigments, 4 separate channels of color. Mammals dumped 2 of them. The genes are gone. Birds kept all 4. So did lizards, turtles, and crocodiles. Which means the pigeon standing on the pavement outside your window is seeing colors that have no name in any human language and no equivalent in your head at all. And it is using them to look at exactly the same street you are. We came back out into the daylight holding 2. Then, roughly 30 million years ago, our own branch of the primates duplicated a gene and got a 3rd one back. That is the reason you can tell a ripe fruit from an unripe one, tell a flushed face from a pale one, tell blood from mud. Your color vision is not an original feature. It is a patch, sitting on top of a loss, sitting on top of 100 million years in the dark. But be honest about what that is. It is a subtraction, not a fault. Nobody is reaching for glasses because their ancestors gave up ultraviolet. Not the answer. Here is where it gets genuinely uncomfortable though, because the 3rd suspect is the one you use every second and have never noticed. That thumbnail at arm's length, 2 degrees. That is the size of your sharp vision, and it comes from a pit in the middle of your retina called the fovea, packed with cones. Step outside it, and resolution collapses immediately. You have around 127 million photoreceptors in each eye, and they all have to squeeze down into roughly 1 million fibers in the optic nerve. That is compression of about 100 to 1, happening inside your head, constantly. So your eyes cheat. They jump. 3 or 4 times every second, they flick to a new spot, freeze, sample, and jump again. And the picture you think you are seeing is a composite stitched from hundreds of those snapshots per minute. And in between the jumps, while your eyes are sweeping, the world should smear like a bad camera pan. It does not, because your brain deletes it. It simply throws away the visual input during the movement and papers over the gap. You can catch it doing this. Go to a mirror, look at your left eye, then your right eye, then back again. You will never, not once, see your own eyes move. Somebody standing next to you can see them move perfectly clearly. You cannot. You are watching a recording with the awkward parts cut out, made by the thing that also decides what you remember happening, which is remarkable. And it is not a defect. It is a brilliant piece of engineering because building a 127 megapixel cable out the back of an eyeball was never possible. So evolution built a tiny sharp window, moved it very fast, and lied about the seams. That is a trade, and a good one. So the wiring is trapped, the color loss is ancient history, and the tiny window is a clever bargain. 3 inspections, nothing broken, and yet half the planet is heading for glasses. Which means the failure is not in the eye at all. It is in what we did to it. And somebody measured that by accident in 1969. The place was Barrow, on the Arctic coast of Alaska, and a team led by Francis Young examined 508 people from one recently settled community. Same town, same families, often parents and children in the same room. The people over 41 had grown up out on the ice, hunting and fishing, with little or no schooling. Among them, out of 131 eyes examined, exactly 2 were short-sighted. 2, their children and grandchildren had grown up in the town with compulsory American-style school, reading, desks, walls. Among those aged 11 to 40, more than half were short-sighted. Read that back. Same gene pool, same families, 2 generations, from almost nobody to most people. Nothing in the human genome moves that fast. Nothing. Whatever did this was not inherited. It was environmental, and it arrived with the school building. Now, in 2021, Yas Rozaima and a colleague went back through the historical Arctic data in the journal Ophthalmic and Physiological Optics and complicated the story properly, and it is worth being straight about it. It was not simply reading. It was reading, plus a move from a life lived outdoors to a life lived indoors, plus the Arctic's own weak light, plus the residential schools and the stress of everything that happened inside them. The size of the shift held up. The single clean cause did not. Real evidence usually does this, but it points at something, and that something turns out to be the whole story. Because your eye is not born the right shape. This is the part nobody tells you, and it changes everything. A newborn's eyeball is too short, and every image lands slightly behind the retina. Over the first few years, the eye grows, and as it grows, it constantly reads the blur on its own retina and uses that blur as a signal to tell itself when to stop stretching. It is a self-building lens system that finishes its own construction by measuring the world. There is even a word for it, emmetropization, and it means exactly that. The eye grows itself into focus, which is extraordinary. And it is also a machine with an external dependency, and that dependency is light. The chemical brake is dopamine, released by the retina itself, and what releases it is brightness. Not brightness the way you mean it, brightness the way an eyeball means it. Step outside on a gray, overcast, thoroughly miserable afternoon, and you are standing in about 10,000 lux. Full sunshine is closer to 100,000. Your living room, your classroom, your office. The room you are in at this exact moment is somewhere around 300 to 500. It does not feel dim because your pupils and your brain adjust and hand you a perfectly bright-looking world. But your retina is not measuring how bright it looks. It is measuring photons, and it is receiving somewhere near 1% of what it was calibrated against. So the brake never fully comes on. The eyeball keeps stretching. It goes past the point where the image lands on the retina, and now the focus falls short in front of the film, and the far wall goes soft. A childhood indoors, quietly rewriting the shape of an eye. If that sounds like a theory, it was tested properly with a control group. In Guangzhou, 12 primary schools and roughly 1,900 6-year-olds were randomized, and half the schools added 40 extra minutes of outdoor time to the end of the school day. That was the entire intervention. Not less reading, not better lighting. Not eye exercises, not screens banned. 40 minutes outside. 3 years later, the schools that stayed indoors had a new short-sightedness rate of about 40%. The schools that went outside, about 30%. Mingguang He and his colleagues published it in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2015. 40 minutes of daylight moving the eyes of a generation. Your retina runs on signals. So does this video. If it has earned one, tap the like. So the answer is this, and it is not the one the title promised you. Your eyesight is not a failed evolution, it is an unfinished one. The eye was never designed to arrive complete because for 500 million years, it never had to. It was built to show up half-made and let the world do the last step, and the world could always be relied on to be bright and far away and full of horizons. That is not a bug that crept in. That is the entire design philosophy, and it worked flawlessly until roughly 2 generations ago, when we built an environment out of walls and put the interesting things 40 centimeters from our faces. And then the oldest compromise of all sends its bill. Remember the retina, the one that got installed backwards 500 million years ago. It was never bolted to anything. It is a delicate sheet lying against the back wall of the eye, held there by pressure and by that pigment layer underneath, which is survivable right up until you stretch the eyeball it is lining. Severe short-sightedness sharply raises the risk of the retina tearing away from the back of the eye. It raises the risk of glaucoma. It raises the risk of damage to the very center of your vision. A compromise made 500 million years ago in an animal with no bones, quietly sending the invoice to a child who spent their childhood inside. And there is one last thing your eye does on a schedule to everyone alive, without a single exception. The lens inside it never sheds a single cell. It keeps laying down new layers over the old ones for your entire life, like a tree, and it gets stiffer every single year. Somewhere around 45, it can no longer squeeze itself into a rounder shape. Close-up text slides quietly out of reach. It is not a disease. It is not bad luck. It is a countdown that started the day you were born, inside an organ that was never optimized for the second half of a life we invented. Which is why this one is worth passing on. The single cheapest fix in modern medicine is a child being outside, and the window for it is childhood, and it is mostly shut by the early teens. So send this to somebody with a small kid indoors, because that is a thing you can actually change today. So look up, off the screen, at the far wall, the window, whatever is furthest away in the room you are sitting in. The blur at the edges is not damage. The hole you cannot find is not damage. The fact that this text is sharp at this distance and would be soft at that one is not damage either. It is a 500 million-year-old machine, wired backwards, stripped for parts in the dark, and running on a 2-degree window, and it has spent every day of your life asking the world one simple question. How far away do things need to be? For almost all of human history, the world answered honestly. It said far. Ridgelines, tree lines, the shape of something moving at the edge of the grass. Now it answers from about 40 centimeters. And your eyes believed it. So tell me down in the comments, from exactly where you are sitting right now, what is the furthest away thing you can see? I want to know how much horizon we have got left between us. Until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.